Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm going to apologize right off the bat for I have a cold. So I'm going to croak my way through this and we're going to be fine. This may or may not work, whatever. No, it's all right. He's going to turn it up. And in the meantime, I'm just not going to use it. All right. So we're going to talk about storytelling today, stories in general and how we use them. And I'm just going to ask for a little honesty up front. How many of you came here today thinking, what does storytelling really have to do with my business? Okay, great. A couple of you? Great. I love it. I love that you're honest. Um, I totally can relate to that. I can totally relate to people saying, what does this have to do with selling houses? What does this have to do with serving people? But I will tell you, in my 26th year working in this industry, that this is the single most impactful thing that I have ever implemented in my business. Storytelling has had not only the biggest impact, but has created some of the greatest relationships and has brought me some of the most high profile clients that I have. And it's also made my job so much easier. How many of you have ever sat down and looked at Facebook or your newsletter or LinkedIn or a video and thought, what do I say? Yeah, most of us. Or, oh my gosh, I have to come up with something else to say today. I have to post something. I have to put something in this email. Where do I start? That is where storytelling comes in. So where we're going to start today is we're going to look at the value of stories, and I'm going to show you 10 stories that you should be telling in your business right now. Most important stories that we should be telling. And then we are going to go into some recipes. I love to bake and cook, and so I like to bring food metaphors into my classes. And so I'm going to give you some recipes, some really simple recipes that are going to help you to create some great stories. And then you don't need those right now. Don't worry about it. I'll hand those out afterwards. We'll make sure that you get those. And then we're going to start crafting your own story. Okay? Sound good? All right. I cannot be the only one talking today. So when I ask questions, that's when you answer so I can get a drink of water. Sound good? All right. All right. So let's start with stories. How many of you remember the stories that you were told as a child? Yeah. They were the most important ways that we learned to communicate with the people around us. Stories were the first ways that we learned language, that we learned about words, where the stories that we were told as children taught us about relationships and other people. They taught us to be curious about the world around us. They taught us to ask questions. They introduced us to things like joy and friendship and possibility. They introduced us to emotion and how to express emotion. They also introduced us to happiness. I was never allowed to watch this as a kid, so I put that in there just to kind of stick it to my parents. But the stories that we were told as children were the foundation of our language skills and the way that we relate to the world. But as we grew older, we were told different stories. The stories became a little more complicated. The stories became a little more like a little emotional in a different way, right? So they were told to us to inspire us, but they also pushed us beyond belief. You remember this one? Right? Yes. They pushed us to think, what if? What if what I've been told in those early stories wasn't necessarily the only truth? Also wasn't allowed to watch this one, but I did. They were told to help us learn to dream and to find our voices and to teach us to sort of disbelieve some of the things that we've been told. Best movie ever made. I'll fight you on this one. I did a talk a couple of months ago, and I showed this one, and half the room had no idea what it was, and that's how I knew I was old, right? In that moment, I knew I was old. How many of you don't know what movie this is? Okay. We'll do a movie night after this. Stories were also created to make us feel fear. Crazy to think that we once thought this was realistic, right? They got more complicated. They got a little scarier. They had themes that made us think and dream and believe. They made us, encouraged us to take risks, right? And they reminded us who we are. Remember that line? Peter, don't you know who you are? And most importantly, they created the opportunity for hope. Stories, again, were the foundation of how we learn to communicate with the world around us. And they still continue to be to this day. So for those of you that walked in here today thinking, I don't know what this has to do with me dealing with people, everything. Because stories really are the beginning of how we communicate ideas and how we move people beyond fear. And that's our entire job, is to communicate ideas and move people beyond fear. But also, every one of those stories was selling us something, selling us on an idea or a dream or a thought or to change the way that we think. And each of you are selling something too, whether you're selling thumbtacks or canoes or tacos or education, or you are selling white picket fences. Every single one of us are selling something. But none of it matters if we don't know why people buy. Now, a lot of us, we think we know why people buy. And there are gurus and speakers that get on stages all the time and tell us why people buy, right? Some of you are selling ideas. Some of you are selling legacy or a career or a purpose or belonging or a plan. But no matter what you're selling, it doesn't matter how you sell it if you don't understand why people buy. So here's what the gurus tell us. They tell us that people buy because of a set of data points. Because the market is here and the rates are here and the prices are here and the inventory is here, and that is why people make decisions to buy. They also tell us that people buy because of their age, because they are a boomer or they are a millennial or they are a Gen X. They also tell us that people buy because of their demographics in certain areas or in certain groups or in certain families. People are more likely to buy. They tell us that geographics matter. In these areas, people are more likely to make buying decisions. They also tell you that we should target things that people love, like dogs or travel. They tell us that we make our buying decisions because of our friends or our family. And most importantly, they tell us that people make buying decisions because they are at the mercy of the market. But all of those are simply symptoms of why people buy. Those are not reasons why people make buying decisions. And the most important thing that I learned about communicating with people is that people do not make buying decisions because of who they are. They make buying decisions because of who they want to become. Because of that dream of what might be, right? They are making buying decisions, whether they are buying boxes of cereal or houses or cars or vacations, because of who they might become, the person that they might become as a result of that purchase, the dreams that they might achieve, the goals, the places that those things might take them, the safety, security that that might provide. And so when we start to understand that people buy because of who they want to become, we learn that we have to stop talking to who people are and start talking to who people want to become. And that's where storytelling can be so powerful and so important, because it can be really difficult to start talking to somebody in a way that they are not quite there yet. But storytelling can help them to imagine it. We are talking to the people that they are dreaming of becoming, the person that they are wanting to be as a result of that purchase. Ultimately, people want to become different or better because of what they are buying. And all of us can, as we're listening to this, can think of things that we have purchased. I have lots of things I've purchased off Instagram that I've purchased because I want to become better or different or more, right? We're all nodding. Most of those things did not work, did they? Most of those things, and you can't return them, right? So now you own them, and they didn't work. But we know that mentality exists when we decide to make purchases. So what your customers are really buying, and no matter what market or demographic or age group, what your customers are really buying is a better version of themselves, right? Great, we can understand that. We can relate to that. We can talk to that. And the very best way to do that is through the power of stories. We can start talking to the people that want to become happier, more successful, settled, richer, wealthier, right? And just like the earliest days of how we were sold to, the stories that we watched that taught us about communicating with others and the language, we can use the power of story. Now, the most important thing I ever learned about storytelling is this: there is only one way to get anybody to do anything. Parents of teenagers, you might want to write this down. There's only one way to get anyone to do anything, and that is to start by making them feel something, right? If we want to influence behavior, if we want to get people to make a decision, get off the fence, think about things differently, try something new, adapt to change, the only way to get anyone to do anything is to start with the way they feel. Because if we can make someone feel something, we can change the way that they think. And if we can change the way someone thinks over time, we can change the way they act. And over time, actions become behaviors and patterns and habits. So the only way to really get anyone to do anything or buy anything is to make them feel something. Making somebody feel something can feel tricky, hard. How do we do that? And as Simon Sinek tells us, there's only two ways. You can manipulate or you can inspire, right? Inspire is just another word for feel. How do we get them to feel and think differently? Now, we know that manipulations work, right? Absolutely. You go into a grocery store, you need to buy a box of cereal. It's buy two, get one free. How many boxes of cereal are you walking out with? 19. Good answer. 19. Yes. I'm with you on that, right? Yes, at least 3, because one's free if we buy 2. So obviously, manipulations work. What's the problem with manipulations? Gimmicks, coupons. We got to keep coming up with new ones all the time, right? Oh gosh, we already did that one. Now I got to come up with something new. My very first broker was like, Val, just send out coupons for free market analysis, free CMA. That only worked for so long until people were like, I don't need a free market analysis. I need insight. I need advice. I need expertise. I need somebody to help me feel secure or comfortable making a move, right? And so while gimmicks work, ultimately, inspiring, making people feel is far more impactful. So we've got to get people to feel something. Now, some of you are thinking, okay, great, I'm jiving with this. I feel the idea of stories, but Val, I'm not a great writer, or I don't really want to get in front of a camera. I don't really know where to start. You don't have to be a great writer or even get on camera to be a great storyteller. You simply have to pay attention to how people's brains work and ultimately what makes them feel. And that's what I'm going to show you today. How do we get inside their brains and understand the basic psychology of how people think around purchasing decisions? And then how do we tie that into a story that ultimately makes them feel something? So I'm a huge data nerd in terms of psychology. I like to know what makes people tick, what makes people think. And the deeper you dive into that, the more interesting it is that we all are kind of driven by the same chromosomes. We're all kind of driven by the same recipe that happens in our brain. If you hit the brakes really hard because the car in front of you braked, every single one of us are going to feel that little prickle on the back of our necks, right? Because every single one of our brains is going to do that same thing and release those same chemicals at the same time. So if we can learn how to do that, if we can learn how to make people feel things, our marketing becomes more powerful. Our stories become things that can actually move people forward, help them to feel less fear. So I'm going to give you 10 stories to start out today that you should be telling right now, based on where we are with the market, based on where our clients are. How are our clients feeling right now? Start with buyers. How are buyers feeling right now? Overwhelmed, afraid, fearful, scared, frustrated. Yeah, absolutely. Pardon? Hopeless. Yeah. How are sellers feeling right now? But also overwhelmed, fearful, right? Yeah. We've got a range of emotions and sometimes overlapping because those sellers, while they're excited, also then suddenly realize, oh, I'm also a buyer. Crap, right? And I'm in the same boat as the rest of them. Or I'm sitting on this really big house with a really low interest rate. Where am I going to go? Right? So they're all feeling a range of emotions right now. There isn't one party that's like, yay, and one that's like, oh, crap. There's a little bit of all of that. So we have to talk to all of them, understanding those emotions. So let's start with story number 1. Basic psychology. At some point, the pain of not doing something becomes greater than the pain of doing it. Taxes, for example, right? We can put it off as long as we want, but at some point, the pain of not doing it is going to become greater than the pain of doing it. Anybody feel this in anything, right? Pain of not going to the gym, the pain of not eating vegetables, pain of not, taking care of our bodies. Absolutely, at some point, we feel that pain. The most important story that we should be telling is the solution to the pain. What is the solution to that pain? How are we providing that? Now, pain makes a great story. How many of you have seen in the media recently stories of, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, things are terrible, everybody's feeling the pain? Pain makes a great story, right? Everyone loves a train wreck. But what about the solution? Are we offering those solutions? I'm going to give you an example from another industry. This one's for you, Roger. Let's talk about men's health. Apparently, dudes, you don't like going to the doctor. Apparently, this is a thing. In fact, somebody told me yesterday, he's a man, he doesn't medicine. And I'm like, yeah, right? Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you acknowledge that this is you, but apparently in the medical industry, this is a known fact. Dudes do not like to go to the doctor. In fact, you have to basically be dying, right? And so studies have been done, stories about the pain. 5 excuses men use to avoid going to the doctor. 72% said they'd rather clean a bathroom than go to the doctor. That's when you know it's real, right? Or my favorite meme, this year, thousands of men will die from stubbornness. No, we won't. Right? We can all relate to this. If you have a man in your life or you are a man, you know there's some truth to this. So what's the medical industry doing about this? Are they talking about, oh, guys hate going to the doctor? No, they're broifying health. They are creating waiting rooms that have kombucha on tap and big screen TVs and leather recliners. And they're trying to make it more exciting and comfortable for dudes to go and get their checkups. Right? This is an entire movement in men's health. And I see some of you would be game for this, right? Like, I'll make an appointment for 3 hours ahead. I'll go and watch the game, right? I love this. I love that they're, instead of saying, oh, guys never go to the doctor, they're saying, here's a solution. Let's make it more comfortable, right? Right. And women who think you're being left out, we get mobile mammograms. Yay. So, yeah. Little something for everybody. But hey, they're telling the solution to the pain and not just talking about the pain. So my question for you for story number 1 is, what is the solution to the pain points that your customers are hearing or feeling right now? Is it more of the same? Oh gosh, inventory's down. We're seeing multiple offers. Rates are up. Or is it, these are some options you have. Here are some solutions. Here are some things that we've put into place with our current clients right now that are helping them make decisions, even in the face of these challenging situations, right? We're pretty lucky here in Michigan. We're not dealing with some of the uninsurable issues that they're seeing in some of the coastal areas in this country, right? I'm hearing stories out of Denver where a house isn't closing because the roof is 5 years old and they want a full tear off, right? So we're pretty fortunate in that way that we're not dealing with some of those things. But we still have those complicated issues. We're still feeling that pinch of multiple offers, not enough inventory, rates, boomers not really wanting to move. So what are some of the solutions? What are some of the options that we can offer? Second story is this. We are more likely to notice things that stand out. Again, basic psychology. How many of you have bought a new car in the last couple of years? Yeah? What color was it? White. Yes. It's real estate, right? White. Most common color of a real estate agent's car. After you bought that car, were you more likely to see that kind of car on the road? Sure. We're more likely to see the kind of car that we have, but you are more likely to remember that one lime green car that you saw. Because the thing that stands out is the thing we remember. That story of how we are different is super important. And it's more important than ever right now because of the way our industry is changing. We can talk about our value all day long in terms of, I'm great, I'm number one. But everybody's number one. Have you noticed? So how do we become different? You know, the number one lie that my very first broker taught me, and I love him, he's a great guy. He said, Val, if you want to beat your competition, you have to be better than them. And I believed that for like 10 years. And I chased better for 10 years. And you know what that is? It's exhausting. Because in order to be better than everyone around you, you know what you have to do? You have to look at what everybody else is doing and try and copy them, but just one up them. It's exhausting. But I learned more recently that if you want to beat your competition, you have to be different from them. Different means you don't have to look at what everybody else is doing. You can lean into what makes you you. And the more different you are, the more valuable you are because it's not the same as everyone else. How many of you have gone into, say, Meijer recently and walked down the snack aisle? Okay, most of you. Some of you are just not admitting it. Okay, you go down the snack aisle. How many kinds of granola bars or protein bars are there? 6 million. Exactly. So many. So many. You walk down and you're like, you know, there's the Quaker guy and there's the this and then that. And how do you decide? So this was a problem that a very common snack bar brand had a few years ago. They sat down and they said, how do we stand out in a sea of same? Everybody has a granola bar product. How do we stand out? They sat in a room, bunch of executives, bunch of marketing people, and they said, what are we going to do to stand out? And somebody said, what if our packaging was just the list of ingredients that we include? Oh, okay. But then somebody said, what if we also include what we don't put in our food? And that is how this packaging came to be. A list of only the ingredients, but look at that last one. No BS. We have children present, so we're going to keep this family friendly. Now, was this a risk? Yes. Is this going to go in maybe kids' lunchboxes? Yes. Right? It's no baking soda. No baking soda, by the way. Right? Was that a risk to put that right on your packaging? Could some people go, oh, I'm not into that? Sure. But more people were like, ooh, I like the transparency. I like the clear, simple talk of this is what we are and this is what we are not. I can pronounce everything in this snack bar. That's different from everybody else, right? And so when everybody else is swimming in the sea of same, what is the one thing you do that nobody else does? And are you telling that story? Now, some people might be thinking, well, that's kind of weird. Like the one thing I do that nobody else does is, Like I show up on moving day with a pizza. That's amazing. In fact, I had an agent do that once, and that is my favorite agent in the world. Like, nobody wants anything more on moving day than a pizza. So, how are you different? And are you telling that story? Instead of trying to be everybody else but better, what is the one thing you do that no one else does? What is the one thing that makes you weird? Are you leaning into that? Because that might be the most powerful story that you have. The third story is this: it is not about the features, it's about the future. How many of you have ever gone to go and buy something and you get overwhelmed with all of the different features? Like if you've ever shopped for an appliance and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's just a stove. Like, why are there so many buttons and things? Why does it need to do all of this? Right? I don't need to sync my smartphone with my oven. Some people do. Features can be a great selling point, but they sort of leave you in that same but better category. Everybody's got the features. Everybody's going to list all the features. But what people are looking for is, how is this going to make my life different in the future, right? We're talking to how people want to be, who they want to become. And so are we talking about that future? Now, in our industry, this is one thing that we do kind of well. Hey, this is a great kitchen and it has great countertops, but also imagine yourself cooking here on Christmas Day with your family, right? We can kind of lean into that. Apple does this really well. Now, whether or not you believe Apple really is into privacy or not is one thing or another, but it's a very clear and simple statement. It's not, hey, look at all the tools and the technology that we have behind privacy. It's just privacy. That's what we believe in, right? Let me give you a different example that you might relate to. Know the time without seeing that you have 1,249 unanswered emails. I know you can relate to this because I know in this industry you all have 12,000 unread emails, right? But you look at this and you don't think, oh gosh, wow, like the nostalgia of an old-fashioned analog watch. You think, oh yeah, the simplicity of not having to be notified every 30 seconds that, this client is calling me back about the most ridiculous things, or that I have yet another text message, right? The simplicity of not having to think about the features, just about the future. Here's another couple of examples. A house where the floors don't creak. A house where the pantry is an actual pantry. A house where you don't have to open the door every 5 minutes. A house where you don't have to hide your cat from your landlord. Right? Those are some pretty simple statements, but they make you feel something, don't they? Gosh, yes, it would be nice to have an actual pantry, not have stuff everywhere. It would be nice, to have a little more space. The future, not the features. You don't have to go into all the details. Just get people to feel something about what could be. That's a really powerful story, right? And again, these are really powerful Instagram images that don't require a lot of work. And you're not talking about all the features of a house. You're talking about one thing that makes people feel something. So my question is, what does the future look like when people work with you? Are you telling that story? Are you listing all the features? This was a really popular thing to do a couple of months ago when the NAR lawsuit was, sort of coming to its culmination. And I started seeing agents everywhere listing those lists of, here are the 101 things that I do. And I thought, A, no one's going to read all those. And B, that doesn't make me feel anything other than, what's your point? But a house where every elbow has a room, a house where a pantry is a real pantry, speaks to somebody because you're helping them become who they want to be, helping them achieve what they want to achieve. I want to show you kind of an example here from a friend of mine. Her name's Leslie. She works in New Orleans. One of the things she does really well is paints a picture of the future her clients might experience. Now, if you've ever been to New Orleans, you know it's a city made up of a lot of very different communities, very different neighborhoods, and they're all very distinct. If you live in one community, it's very different from another neighborhood. It's a lot like kind of around here, right? We've got all these little neighborhoods, and they're all very different in their own way. And one of the things that she did during COVID, when she had some downtime, she had her photographer go around and take great images of all of the different communities that she serves. And on her website, you can go in and you can click on any one of those little neighborhoods. And as you click on those, it takes you to a page where it tells you a little bit more about that neighborhood and what your life might be like if you live there. So it tells you a little bit about the kind of houses and restaurants and things to do there, parks and types of people that live there, kind of activities that happen in community centers. And so when somebody says, "Hey, Les, like where would I live? What would be a great neighborhood for me if I'm thinking about buying a house?" She's like, "Go check out all these different neighborhoods. Which one speaks to you? Which one feels like your future?" I think it's a great example of little micro stories that allow us to start picturing our future, not just the features. Because it's not just, I want to look at a list of restaurants and parks. I want to get a sense of what my life would be like, right? Number 4, fourth story. The more that we see something, the more we come to like and trust it. Again, basic psychology. The more we see something, the more we're like, okay, right? I can get on board with that. I saw a quote the other day that said, "It's only weird until it becomes magical." And a great example of that is Uber. Maybe 15 years ago, we were not like, "Hey, I'm going to climb in some random stranger's car in the middle of the night and have them take me to my house." That seems bizarre and also not safe. But now I do it all the time, right? Get home at the airport at midnight, have some random stranger drive me to my house. Still kind of feels a little weird and maybe not safe, but I do it every week. And it's not as weird anymore because we've gotten used to it. And so the more we see something, the more we come to like and trust it. A lot of us, we get into this kind of behavior pattern in our marketing that, "Oh, I said that already. I told that story. I posted that picture. I wrote that blog post. I can't do that again. I have to come up with something new." But the marketing secret that I have for you is more often is better. Share that same story again and again. If it worked, share that video again. It's not a one and done. Do you only see a commercial once and never see that same commercial again? Unfortunately, no. We see the same commercial over and over and over again, right? 1-800-CALL-SAM for a million times. But there's a reason why, because it works. Because the more familiar we are with something, the more we come to like and trust it, the more we remember it. It's just like leftovers. You make a lasagna, you eat that lasagna for how many days? All the days, forever, until it's gone, right? And the first day it's great, the second day it's fine, and by the third day you're sick of it, but you're going to keep eating it because whatever, you made it, right? No good story is ever a one and done. No good marketing is ever just, "I'm going to post this once and I'm never going to post it again." You can break it up into little pieces, you can intro it a different way, but the more familiar people are with our message, the more comfortable they are, the more they remember it, the more that they will repeat it. So what do they need to hear consistently right now? What do buyers need to hear consistently right now?
It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. What else? Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And we made it. Yes. Yes. We all need to hear that. What do our sellers need to hear right now consistently? You're in control. Okay. What else? Nothing. Yeah. Or nothing's predictable. There's no promises. You're not necessarily going to get 74 offers. Yes, you likely will die in your house if you wait for 3%. Absolutely. Right. So we're not going to just say that once. We're going to say that consistently in multiple different ways over and over again. Right? Story number 5 It is lazy marketing to simply talk about what you sell. And I see this a lot. I'm friends with 5,000 real estate agents on Facebook. I'm not kidding. 5,000. And I see a lot of, I have a house for sale. Did I mention I have a house for sale? Did I tell you I have a house for sale? I have a house for sale. In case you didn't notice, I have a house for sale. Right? I see a lot of that. And my first thought is always, it is lazy marketing to simply talk about what you sell. We started out today reminding you that people don't buy because of who they are. They buy because of who they want to become. And so I have a house for sale doesn't make me feel anything. It makes me think, okay, good for you. So what? What does that mean to me? Right? One of the marketing acronyms we all probably learned in the last many years was what's in it for me, right? The WIFM. What's in it for me? But I would argue that most commonly people are asking, tell me why I should care. Harder acronym to say. But tell me why I should care. We are bombarded with messages. We get 35,000 different marketing messages a day on average between TV and radio and outdoor marketing and everything that we consume, all of our socials, we get bombarded with messages. And our brains are constantly saying, tell me why I should care. Now, I'm going to give you an example on this next screen. And in case this is being recorded, I just want to start by saying, I do not recommend you do this. I do not recommend you do this. Okay? Good. We're great. No, definitely not. So, there are some high-end hotel chains, very high-end, like we're talking, $1,000 a night, luxury hotels that have started trying out something new. You know how you used to go to a nice hotel and there'd be like a chocolate on your pillow? We've upped the ante a little bit. So in some high-end hotel chains in the US these days, you go and you get a choice of 2 CBD gummies, depending on what you would like your evening to bring, sleep or something else. Now, because again, we're keeping this family friendly today, I will just say if you go to a very expensive hotel and you're not by yourself, you typically only want one of these things. So you get your choice, right? Now, I don't recommend you start handing these out at open houses, y'all. Please. Is there a risk here? Yes. Are some people going to be offended? Sure. But are people going to think about it, talk about it, tell people about it? Absolutely. Right? You're giving people a choice. It's memorable. It resonates. My first broker also always told me, Val, you got to be top of mind. But I think we need to go a step further. It's not about being memorable, it's about being remarkable. Memorable means somebody will remember you, but remarkable means they will tell other people about you, right? And the whole point of this is that people remark about it. Now, the whole point of this is that people get to become what they want. They get a choice. Who do you want to be? Here's your golden ticket to the night of your life. So what do you help people accomplish? What is that story? What are you helping them to achieve? And are we telling that story enough? Are we telling the story of generational wealth? Are we telling the story of security? Are we telling the story of investments that are going to fund potentially schooling for the rest of that generation or that family? Are we talking about early retirement? Are we talking about the things that investment is going to make possible? Maybe it's just a bigger backyard so you can finally get a dog. What are we helping people accomplish? We don't tell these stories enough. We focus on the features and we talk about what we sell. I can help you buy or sell. But it goes so much deeper than that. I can help you create generational wealth for your family for years to come. Those are the stories that we should be putting more focus on. Story number 6. The first piece of information that we see often sets our expectation of value. This is a really natural psychological phenomenon that happens in our brains. It's called the anchoring bias. You've experienced this, whether you know it or not. Have you ever gone and sat down with a seller and talked about selling their house, and they say to you, well, my neighbors down the street just sold their house for this, and my house is better. So my house must be worth more. Yes, it's happened, right? That's anchoring bias. Those people, it's not that they're delusional or that, buyers are liars or they're whatever. It's that in our brains, we see a price, we see a number, and immediately we start to compare every number to that number. This is just how our brains work. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you an example, and your brain is immediately going to handle anchor bias in seconds. And I'm going to walk you through how it works. This is the pricing page for MailChimp. You're all familiar with MailChimp. It's a tool that lets you send emails. And as you look at this, immediately your brain goes all the way to the right and goes, free. Woo, that's great. Free. But what am I missing? And then your brain goes all the way to the left and you go, ooh, $2.99. That's a lot. That's really expensive because free feels really cheap. So $2.99 sounds really expensive, right? So now your brain has sort of ping-ponged back and forth. Well, now it goes to essentials and you're like, $11. That's great. 11 seems reasonable, but your brain then goes to 17 and you think, I must be missing out on something on the $11 package that the $17 package will give me. And ultimately, your brain tells you the $17 package is the best one. And do you know why that is? Because there is a yellow bar across the top. That's the only reason. Basic psychology. Our brains tell us there is a yellow bar across the top. That's the best one. We can't control it. We don't even necessarily know it happens. Yeah? Oh my gosh, yes. Compare options, yellow bar. Until you notice it, you don't notice it. But now, every time you look at compare options, you're going to see something is in red or it's in yellow or it's bigger. And that's immediately telling your brain, anchor bias. That must be the best because you are anchoring it against really expensive or free, and this is your best option, right? So now that we know that our brains work that way, here's the question I have for you in your stories. What's the very first and most important thing that you want your customer to know? The thing that you want your customer to anchor all of the other thoughts or messages that they get against. Now, here's where you can really lean into how you're different. Some agents use price, commission amount. They're number one, the size of their database. But what if it was, I am always going to tell you the truth no matter what, no matter how hard it is. Ooh, that's a pretty strong anchor. Because now, if somebody doesn't tell me that, guess what my brain is going to tell me? They're not going to tell me the truth. They might not be telling me the truth, right? So what if we leaned into those things that make you uniquely you and that becomes your anchor? Are you using those strong statements in your stories? Again, stories don't have to be once upon a time. It can be, I am always going to be upfront with you no matter what. For some people, it is, I am always going to answer my phone no matter what time of day. I think those people are crazy, but whatever, right? For some people, it's, I am going to be personally the one to always be face to face with you, not a member of my team. Whatever that anchor is for you, lean into that. That is one of the strongest things that you have, the strongest stories that you can tell. It's the thing that makes you different, and it's the thing they are going to line everything up against and hold up to that yellow bar, right? All right, story number 7, we are naturally more trusting of authority figures, and we are more trusting of stuff that people already trust, right? People that become influencers, or I call them fancy people or whatever, they get to a certain point and we naturally trust them more because other people trust them. That whole idea, right, of like 9 out of 10 dentists approve. Well, it must be good, right? So let me give you an example. This is my friend Jeremy. Jeremy is a public speaker. As you look at this, what do you think about Jeremy? What comes to mind? Yeah, why do you think that? Okay, yeah, great. What else do you think about Jeremy? Yes, no, I mean, that's how our brains work. What else do you think about Jeremy? Yeah. Yep, go ahead. Yeah. What does that make you feel about him? Okay. Fair. Okay. High energy, right? He's got a lot of endorsements, so a lot of people have endorsed him. So there's a lot of logos around across the bottom. What does that make you assume about him? There's a lot of people have trusted him, right? Um, Up there, the quote is from the CEO of Omnicom. Omnicom. Do you know who the CEO of Omnicom is? No. Do you even know if there is one? No. But do we sort of look at that and start to think he's kind of a big deal? Sure. Exactly. And does he say that he's worked with all these companies? No, but we sort of assume that, right? So we look at this and we make a lot of assumptions about Jeremy. Now, to be fair, he is very high energy. He's worked with all these companies. He is a big deal. He's great. But we make a lot of assumptions off of this one image. Not knowing Jeremy at all, we start to assume a lot of things, right? This marketing is telling us a lot. Now, Jeremy's not being the storyteller here. The storyteller are his clients, in this case, Omnicom and these other companies. They are telling the story for him. Yes, there is a picture of him and there is a large audience, but ultimately, all of the other companies and testimonials or people that he's worked with are doing the telling here. So my question for you is, what do people say about you? Are you using them to tell those stories? Now, yes, we all have a couple of testimonials on our websites or whatever, but are we leaning into those? Are we putting those across the bottom of our videos? Are we putting those on our social media channels? Are we making those voices bigger than our own? Or are our voices mostly, look at me, I'm great? Or is it, look at what, you know, Polly said about me? There is power in what other people say because immediately we are more trusting if it is not from you. Like if you say, hey, I'm a big deal, I'll be like, whatevs, okay. But if 10 people say he's a big deal, I'll be like, all right, there's some weight there. A few testimonials are great, but using other people's words. My clients most commonly describe me as blank, blank, and blank. The words that my clients use when they refer me are this, this, and this, right? Are we leaning into those stories and are we using those? Or are we just saying, I'm honest and transparent? The difference in that language matters. Number 8, we are more likely to do something if everyone else is doing it. Do you remember your mother saying, if your friends all jumped off a bridge, would you jump too? And you remember as a teenager thinking, yes, I would. Absolutely, I would. 100%. This is a super powerful story. Everybody else is doing it. Again, right? 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Colgate. Or look at this, America's favorite mascara. I didn't even know we had one, but there you go. America runs on Dunkin'. Whatever. America's favorite cookie, Oreo. These subliminal messages at some point start to matter. Well, if everybody's doing it, if everybody thinks that, there must be something to it, right? So how are we using that messaging in our marketing? How are we telling that story? What have other people experienced when they've worked with you? I want to show you how one team does this. They're based out of Philly. They're called the Philly Home Collective. And if you go on their website, on the top, there is a button that says Stories. And when you click on Stories at the top of their website, you will see that one of the things that they do when they market a house is they take lifestyle shots of the home. And they give every one of their clients a professional family photo shoot in their home. Right? So, yes. So why would we want as a consumer to go to Stories tab? Shouldn't they put something about what they will do? That they'll give those photos first? It's a good question. So when you click on that, you see dozens and dozens of stories told from the perspective of their clients about what they experienced when they worked with this team. So as you start reading them, you realize these people got their photos taken, but also they're telling the story of, this was our first house. We brought our kid home from the hospital here. We loved it, but it was time to move. And one thing that the team did really well is they helped hold our hand through this process when we didn't really want to move. And every story is unique and different. And now you start to get a sense of what they went through, what they felt. I'm getting transferred. I didn't want to move. This was going to be our forever home, but now we're moving, and they made it so easy for us. This was our first house. We're so excited, right? Yeah. And so they've gone on to do dozens and dozens of these. So not only does their client get the professional photo shoot, but they get great photos that they can use in their marketing, and they get to tell the story of their clients from their client's perspective. And now they've expanded into maker stories and neighborhood stories. And so now you can go in and see stories of different businesses in their community and the small business owners, and also now makers, potters, painters, people that are working in their communities. And so now it's not just the story of their clients, but it's the story of their community. It's the story of their neighborhood. Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. And those people are going to share those photos. 1,000%. And you may be looking at this and going, this isn't what I want to do. That's okay. But think of ways that you can tell your clients stories from their perspective, or allow them to tell their stories. Maybe it's as simple as, hey, at the closing table, I just want to take a 30-second video. And I just want you to just tell me, how do you feel? How did this make you feel? Gosh, this was overwhelming. I'm so glad it's done. You were awesome. Gosh, this was exciting. I'm so excited it's done. I can't wait to move in, right? Just get those feelings, however you're comfortable doing that. Number 9, we are more motivated to avoid losses than to receive gains. Psychologically speaking, if I walked around this room and I offered each of you a $100 bill, but you had to compete with everybody in this room for it, or a $20 bill and you get it right now, most of you would choose the $20. That's right. Because you have a chance of not winning the 100, but the 20 is a guaranteed. Right? And so we're constantly thinking, I'm more concerned about what I might lose than what I might gain. Great example. During COVID, I, as a speaker, was spending a lot of time at home on Zoom. I became quite a bit of a hermit, and I developed what you might call a bit of an Amazon problem. And what really sort of clued me into this Amazon problem is I did the thing you're never supposed to do. I went into settings and I scrolled all the way down and I looked at the dollar amount that I have ever spent on Amazon since I opened my account. Did you know that exists? Don't look at it. The total dollar amount that I have spent on Amazon since I opened my account. Yikes. So when I did that, I decided, I think I need to cancel my Amazon account. I think this has become a problem. I need to stop. Just stop in general. So I went into Amazon and I clicked on delete account. And this is what came up. Val, let's look at our journey together. Let's look at all the money you've saved in shipping, and let's look at all the packages that you've gotten and the movies that you've watched, and let's just look back at our years together. Well, I looked at this and I started thinking, oh my gosh, right? Like, I've had all these packages delivered, and if I had to, I'm probably still going to order kitty litter, so I'm going to have to pay for shipping on that. And then I'm probably still going to order this, and so I'm going to pay for shipping on that. And by the time I do that, I'm going to lose all this money, and it's going to cost more than it costs to, well, anyway, I didn't cancel my Amazon subscription. Still have it, still have the problem to this day, right? But the story we should be telling is, what are they going to lose if they don't work with you? Not just, hey, work with me, I'm great, this is what you'll get. What will you lose? Right? This comes back to that anchoring bias. What is the thing that makes you different? And not just, hey, if you don't work with me, everybody else is a crook. But hey, if you work with me, this is what you're going to get, and this is what you will not get if you don't. Right? What is that story? That is a super impactful story. Now, number 10, last story. And then we're going to change gears a little bit and go into recipes. But when we receive unexpected value, we feel joy. Now, how many of you have ever gotten upgraded unexpectedly on a plane, hotel? How'd that make you feel? Freaking amazing, right? A couple months ago, I was in Miami for an event. I walked in, it was late, my flight had been delayed. I got to the counter at the hotel. The lady at the front counter said, we're overbooked tonight, and I I don't think we have a room for you. And my first thought was, that sounds like a you problem. So I just kind of stood there like, well, I have a reservation. What are we going to do? And so she sort of sat there for a minute and then she talked to her manager and she came back and she goes, we're just going to have to upgrade you into a suite. Okay, fine. Did I mention it was the Four Seasons? I was like, fine, great. I played it cool. That's fine. No problem, right? Do you know what I did when I got up to that suite? I got on FaceTime. I was like, look at me, hashtag ballin'. This is amazing. This is bigger than my house. I have 2 bathrooms. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was also super nice that the person I was FaceTiming was in a Radisson that night. It was great. When we get something we didn't pay for, we didn't ask for, we didn't expect, we feel joy. Right? There's that feeling of delight. Oh my gosh, I didn't expect this. This is awesome. Right? Now, several months ago, I sat in a room just like this, and there were speakers on stage just like this, and it was a, real estate conference, and somebody got up, and I'd listened for about an hour at that point, and all I'd heard was the pain. Right? We started out today talking about the pain. Interest rates, inventory, political issues, election year, multiple offers, frustration, pain, 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 pain. And a speaker got up and said, we have 2 options, folks. We can sell painkillers or we can sell vitamins. We can solve the pain by making it not like numbing it, or we can we can stave off the pain by giving them vitamins. And I remember sitting there and listening to that and thinking, those are not our only 2 options. Those are not our only 2 choices. We have a third choice. We can sell candy. People freaking love candy. Right? We can be like, hey, there's a lot of pain, and you can suffer through it, or you could struggle through it, or it can be like, this is amazing. Sorry. Or we can be like, this is an amazing time to invest. This is an amazing time to make a decision for your family. This is an amazing time to move forward. Right? We can sell candy. And so many of our competitors out there are saying, it's terrible, it's painful, everything's painful. And I'll just help you get through the pain. But there's another option. There's a marketer that does this really well. His name is Johnny Cupcakes. And when you go into one of his shops, it smells like cupcakes. And the wall is covered in vintage ovens that are just breathing out the smell of cupcakes. And there are cupcakes in the front window. And you walk in there and you think, I cannot wait to get a cupcake. And so you walk up to the counter and you order a cupcake and they say, I'm sorry, we don't sell cupcakes here, we sell t-shirts. And they sell amazing t-shirts. Designer t-shirts that people wait in line for days to get. And they package them in amazing ways, like paint cans or pizza boxes, or do you remember when we used to eat popsicles out of toilet paper rolls? Yep. His marketing is amazing, but what he doesn't tell you is every time you order a t-shirt and you get it in amazing packaging, you get something you didn't expect. You get a sticker or a figurine or a Cracker Jack box toy or something that makes you think, wow, I didn't expect this. This wasn't what I paid for. I didn't order this. It's extra. People wait in line not just for the t-shirts, they wait in line for the something extra. And so my question for you is, what is that unexpected delight that will feel like candy to your customer? Sure, we can sell vitamins and we can sell painkillers, but what is the candy? What is the upgrade? What is the thing that they are going to go, look at me, hashtag ballin'? What is that one thing that you do that no one else does that people are going to talk about, that they are going to remark about? And how do you Infuse that into everything that you do. That is the story that you should be telling, right? Marketing, so sorry, y'all. Marketing gets people's attention. We were all taught to market. Market yourself, talk about yourself, send out some flyers. In my early days, put an ad in the yellow pages. But storytelling gets people to remember you. It's not just about being top of mind, it's about being remarkable. You want them to remember something and talk about you. Now, every single one of you is a storyteller. Best movie ever made, I'll fight you. But you aren't just selling a thing or an experience or an idea. You are selling something bigger. Each and every one of you is selling who your customer wants to become. You are talking to the person that they want to become, that better, more settled, more financially stable, happier person with a dog and a backyard. No matter what that looks like, you can help them become that. And this is the foundation of storytelling, is to talk to them about not only who you are, but how you help them become that person they want to become. What else did you learn? Yeah, lots of stories. What else? Right? Yeah. What else? Interruption of your life. Sure. Did you learn that a lot of you have experienced the same pain? Right? Yeah? Did you ever think that, like the other side of the transaction is experiencing the same kinds of pain? Yeah. A lot of you probably were like, "Oh yeah, I've been through that. I've seen that. That's been something I've experienced." So lots of pain points, lots of opportunities for stories, lots of interruptions in the transactions, and lots of opportunities to solve the pain, right? Love that. Okay, so feel free if you want to turn around and go back to your seats. We're gonna go back to your groups though in a little bit. So just things as we start talking about these pain points, as we start thinking about the fact that every one of these squares, I know, I'll get them back. I can't yell today, so. All right. All right, so it's gone. It'll come back in a second. As we, it'll come back. As we start thinking about all these little squares, we start thinking about all these pain points, and we start thinking that each and every one of these is an opportunity to tell a story. Let's look at some of the ingredients, some of the recipes that we might use to tell stories in our marketing about these things. So 3 ingredients that always matter, no matter what. Whether you are posting on Facebook or sending an email or making a video or getting on a TikTok, there are 3 things that always matter. And I will tell you that most of your competitors, and I know because I watch them, only do number 1. Most of them start and stop with number 1. And that is what? What is the most important thing that they need to know? What is the one thing that you want to get across? Remember, I said most of them are like, hey, I have a house for sale. I can help you buy or sell. Right? For most people, that is the what. And they stop there. I have a house for sale. I can help you move. I can help you move. I can help you buy or sell. Right? The second most important ingredient, though, is so what? So what? Most of your audience is thinking that. So what? Why do I care? Why does it matter to me? Why should I pay attention to this? How is this going to change my life or get me where I want to go? So what? So you got to do the what, and you got to do the so what, and then also, equally as important, the now what. What do I do with this information? What's my next step? What do I do? One of the biggest calls to action is call me. And yet we're dealing with entire generations of people who are never going to call you. I'm one of them. I'm right on that Gen X cusp where I'm not going to call or pick up the phone, probably ever, right? And so we have to start thinking about diversifying those now what's, but the what, the so what, the now what, those three ingredients have to be part of every marketing message. A lot of us, we send out postcards. I get a postcard in the mail from a realtor almost every day in my neighborhood. And the front side is, look at me, I have 2 thumbs, and I'm great. And the back side is, look at all the houses I've sold. And I'm left thinking, so what? Now what? Give me some information that I didn't know before and tell me what to do with it. Right? Tell me the average days on market in my neighborhood. Why stuff is sitting. Why what's-her-face's house has been for sale longer than everybody else's. I want to know. So we've got those 3 ingredients. Let's look at a couple of recipes. How do we put these ingredients together? How do we start telling stories that matter? And how do we make them simple so you're not sitting there going, gosh, Val told me I have to tell stories. I still don't know where to start. Let me give you some recipes. So 3 simple recipes. And we're going to call them snakes, stories, and skipping rope. So let's start with snakes. How many of you like snakes? Nobody. Okay, great. Love it. Before we go into snakes, I'm going to give you a super quick lesson on how adult brains work. I'm going to get nerdy for just a minute. When we are kids, we absorb information. Do you remember how much you could remember when you were a kid? How many of you can barely remember your own phone number now? Right? Our brains get full. But as kids, they're sponges. They're constantly soaking up information. We're asking why and tell me more. And as adults, we're like, I don't know, write it down. Our brains work differently as we grow. And so we learn differently. As adults, we are results oriented. You came in here today going, I need to get something out of this for it to matter. I need to at least write down one thing for this to have been worth my time. I get it. I totally get it. You came in here with your arms crossed like, what's this gal got? If you write down one thing, you feel like there's some results. That is how we are wired as adults. That's how we learn. Give me some immediate benefit. The second way we learn is we learn by choice. Nobody forced you to be here today. You're not getting CE for this. Nobody makes you go to school every day anymore. You learn by choice. So you also want to make sure that it's something that matters to you. We also relate to personal experiences. As you're listening to this, this is how your clients learn too. This is how your clients absorb information. They want immediate results. They want choices. And also, they are going to respond better to personal experiences. When you say, let me tell you about a time, that is some of the most impactful language you can use with your clients because that is what turns their brain on to, oh, I can relate to this. Also, we are resistant to change. Newsflash, we don't like it. Woohoo, new MLS system, that's great. Yay, new rules, new forms, sounds like fun. No, we're like, no, I don't want to change. I don't want things to be different. I'm used to this. I just learned this system. This is how adults are, and this is how every single one of your clients approaches the transaction. When change happens, we want to be this guy. Woohoo! Change. Amazing. Cannot wait to pack all my crap in boxes and move to another part of the city. That sounds like so much fun. No, it doesn't. In fact, when change happens, most of us are this person. We're like, no, don't think so. That's just how we are wired. That's basic psychology. The older they get, the more resistant to change we are, the less resilient. And so, when we talk about snakes, let's address the fear. It's a real thing. Our bodies immediately go into fight versus flight when change happens. We're like, ooh, I can handle this, or nope, I don't want to do this. And your clients go through this a million different times during the transaction. I don't really want to pack. I don't really want to declutter. I want to sell my house, but do I really have to get rid of my doll collection? Yes. They're creepy, right? People don't necessarily react super well to fear. So how do we tell a story that helps them get through it? So there's 4 ingredients to this story. And the first one is results. What's the dream? What's the dream, Miss Polly? The dream is a retirement condo with less maintenance and no stairs. Great. We're going to keep that in mind. I'm going to bring that up every time you talk about how hard this is. The dream, Miss Polly, is a retirement condo with no stairs and no maintenance. Think about how great that's going to feel. What's the reality? Well, the reality is right now is that I have 3 stories and I have so much crap and I have to get somebody to mow the lawn and it's a lot of maintenance and it's just too much. Okay, great. So now that we know what the reality is, what is keeping you from making a change? Well, I've lived here for 40 years. I have a lot of stuff. I don't know what to do with the stuff. What do I do with the stuff? What do I do with my stuff before your stager comes in? Do I have to repaint? Do I have to take my pictures down? Do I have to move my piano? Please, for the love, tell me I don't have to move the piano. Right? And that's when you come in with the roadmap. Miss Polly, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to have my stager come on this day. We're going to take photos. I'm going to have somebody help you box up that thing. I've got a piano mover. We've got you. These are simple stories. These are things you do every single day. It's just programming your brain to put them into a recipe that you can reuse. So on social media, you go in and you talk about how, hey, if your dream is less maintenance and no stairs, but what's holding you back is keeping all that stuff and not knowing what to do with it, I can help you with that. I have a plan. Here's what I do. I bring in a stager. I make sure that we can move your piano. You don't have to worry about it. We want to get you to the dream. What most of us do in our marketing is just basically say, here's the dream. We're forgetting the so what and the now what. What is your role? If you look around on these windows, we have a whole lot of little squares of paint, right? I like to tell people that buying or selling real estate is like a game of Candyland. Does anybody remember the old game of Candyland? The legit one, not the pink one we play today. The one where like the old lady in the gingerbread house would eat you. You would die in the gingerbread forest, right? The legit one. That's what real estate is like. Everybody starts out at the beginning. Everybody moves forward a few squares. Maybe the house doesn't appraise. Maybe the property falls through. They have to go back a few squares. Then we get another offer. They move forward a few squares. Great, it's going well. We get to underwriting. We move forward a few squares. Oh, now we move back a few squares. Maybe we skip a whole bunch. Maybe it's cash offer. Great, skip ahead. The goal of everybody in real estate and in Candyland is to get to the end of the game and either get a set of keys or get rid of a set of keys. What we do is Candyland. But every one of these squares that you see on the window, these are all the squares that we have to get through. The questions, the pain points. And here's the thing. I always tell people, if you approach every listing presentation and every buyer consult as a game of Candyland, and you walk them through every single square that could happen or might happen or will happen, and then you tell them how you are going to help them through it, 2 things happen. 1, you have better prepared clients. You have clients that go, oh yeah, you told me that this might happen. We're going back a few squares. But 2, they are far less likely to say, so what do you get paid for? Because you told them for every one of these pain points, every one of these squares, this is what I do. Right? We want to start them out at the dream. We want to talk to them about the reality of where they are today. This is the dream, but the reality is this: 3 flights of stairs and you got to mow your lawn. Let's talk about the fear. Let's talk legit, Miss Polly, about the fact that you are intimidated about moving 40 years of stuff. And let me give you a roadmap through the Candyland to the end. Let's get you to that dream. You do this every day. You know how to do this. You just have to start thinking about the recipe in your marketing and tell that story. All right. Second recipe is this: stories. And stories, in this case, are going to stand for feelings, because remember, the only way to get anybody to do anything is what? Make them feel something. Absolutely. So how do we tell stories that make people feel something? Remembering that great stories compel people to change. And if we can change the way they feel, we can change the way they think and act and over time behave. So if we are going to make an impact into any of our clients and get them to do anything, we have to start with making them feel. So how do we do that? How do we bring emotion into the conversation? How do we make them feel something? I'm going to give you an example of a story. And at the end of it, I want you to tell me how you feel. This is my friend Michael. Michael's a great guy, lives in Vancouver. And Michael was an early adopter of BombBomb. We have any BombBomb users in the room? Old BombBomb users? Had it, don't use it anymore, basically. So he was an early adopter, big fan. So Michael, what he did is he would go into a listing appointment, and after he left the listing appointment, he would always send them a BombBomb message. So in this particular case, he went and he met, I don't remember the names of the people, I always just call them Jim and Pam for the story. So he met Jim and Pam, they were a young couple, and they had a son named Oliver, and they were expecting their second child, and they were living in a 2-bedroom townhouse, and they had decided it was time to move into something bigger because they were expecting their second child. And so they were referred to Michael as a listing agent. And so Michael went and met them for the first time, and he sat down with them and he walked them through the process of selling their home, the home they brought Oliver home from the hospital to the place that they'd only ever lived together as a couple, and move into something bigger. And at the end, after the listing presentation, Michael went out to his car and he took his phone, like he always does, and he looked it up in his phone, up, right? Because chin's up. And he said, "Hey, Jim and Pam and Oliver, it was super nice to meet you today. Thank you so much for showing me around your home and trusting me with your plans. I know this is a huge move, and whether or not you're ready, I just want you to know I'm always here with advice. Be super happy to help you in any way that I can. Have a great day, Michael." 30 seconds, put the phone in his pocket, drove away, went off to his appointments. Now, if you know anything about BombBomb, you know that it notifies you when people watch your video, right? So over the course of the rest of the day, Michael tells me that they watched his video 17 times. Now, my friend Michael is not that good looking. And I don't know why they watched it 17 times. And he didn't either. But 17 times, they watched that video. And the next morning, the sellers of that house gave him a call and said, "Hey, Michael, just want you to know, thought you were great. We're ready to make a move. We know it's big decision, but we're ready to do it. We want you to help us. And by the way, we have to tell you that Oliver loved hearing his name on your video so much that he asked us to play it over and over again." How's that make you feel? Yeah, does that give you a little like, ooh, right? A little goosebumpy, a little like, oh, yeah. Now, what did you learn about BombBomb during that story?
Say the kid's name.
What else?
Just that people like the attention.
Sure. Technically, what did you learn about BombBomb? Yes, it gives you data. You learned that it tells you when you get updated, when people watch it, right? Tells you that it's fairly quick to send. So I used to use that story in BombBomb training. And I didn't say, you click here, you do this, you send. I just made you feel something. And you were more likely to think, I might do some video messages because I want that same feeling, as opposed to, oh, I don't know. Now, whether you use BombBomb as the tool or you just use your phone, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, the message is there's value in that connection, that first name, that face-to-face. There's value in that. And even beyond what we can imagine, right? And so as we start looking at this recipe of how do we get them to feel something? How do we bring emotion into the conversation? How do we push them past the fear of change? We've got a couple of S ingredients here. The first one is stories. Tell a simple story. Let me tell you about my friend Michael. Let me tell you about a time when he did this. For you, it might be, let me tell you about a client I had who was once in the same situation. Let me tell you about a seller I worked with a couple years ago who was in the same boat. Let me tell you, Miss Polly, about the number of pianos that we've moved, right? A simple story can bring emotion in. It's not like, hey, have a seat and let me make you feel something. No, it's I'm going to tell you a story that's going to bring emotion to the conversation. Also, you're going to keep it short. It doesn't have to be this long story. It didn't take me hours to tell you the story about Michael, but you got the point. You understood that there was emotion there was a connection made. Do you think that while Oliver loved hearing his name 17 times, that the owners also didn't get that sense of comfort having watched Michael say that 17 times in a row? Right? Just like we all know all the words to Frozen? Yeah, right? He also made it really simple. Like it's a simple story. It doesn't take a lot to understand. Short and simple and clear as possible. Sometimes we overcomplicate stories. We get way too in the weeds. I spoke with a really great agent a couple weeks ago, and she was like, Val, I don't get it. I do amazing market reports for my farm area every month, and no one responds. Like, no one reads them. No one engages. And I said, okay, tell me more about what you're doing. She said, well, they're like 3 pages long, and they've got graphs. And I was like, whoa, stop. Nobody's reading 3 pages. I said to her, what is the most important single sentence in the market report from last month? She thought about it and she said, well, probably that home values in that neighborhood have gone up 26% in the last 2 years. And I was like, just say that. Home values in your neighborhood have gone up 26% in the last 2 years. Questions? Let's chat. Right? It doesn't need to be 3 pages. It can be a simple and clear and short story. And then you have to have a definitive point of view. And this is where a lot of us fall down in our stories. You should never tell a story without a point, and you should never have a point without a story, y'all. A lot of times we tell this big, long story, and people are left thinking, so what? Now what? What is the point of that story? The point is, of the Michael story, that human connection is important. Using people's names, getting face to face. It doesn't have to be complicated. What is the point of the stories that you are telling? Are you drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is what I believe? Sometimes it might be, now may not be the right time for you to buy, or now may not be the right time for you to sell. Sometimes that's true, right? So that definitive point of view is important. And then lastly, you've got to say what you mean and tell the truth. You can't sort of like wobble around what you're trying to get the point across. These last 2 ingredients are difficult because a lot of people just want to be like, here's a fun story to make you feel happy. And people are left thinking, so what? Why does this matter to me? What do I do with this information? Short and simple and clear stories, but also that draw a line in the sand and believe something and then say the truth. And then we've got skipping rope. Let's have some fun with it. Stories can be fun. Marketing can be fun. Talking to our clients can be fun. So how do we do that? How do we bring the fun in? Now, I get a lot of pushback on this sometimes. People are like, oh, I don't know, fun. I'm not funny. Or I don't want to try and be funny. But here's the thing. Humor is a really powerful emotion. In fact, entire studies have been done on this. This one, and you don't need to read all the words on here, basically tells you, this is an excerpt from a study done on the use of humor in education, and it basically tells us that people will remember more of what you say when they're laughing or smiling. People will actually remember more of what you say when they're having fun learning. And so, like my friend Leslie from New Orleans that I showed you earlier, she shows a lot of, let's face it, dumpy houses. And she'll tell you, she shows some real bad ones. And so one of the things she did once when she was showing first-time buyers or even investors houses that were super fixer-upper, she put a bingo card together of all the things they were going to experience. Shag carpeting, cat pee, doors that don't close all the way, broken windows. She did it all. And she's, look, like, I know this is your first house and you want it to be awesome, but we also know in your price range that we're going to be dealing with some fixer-upper stuff. And so let's make some fun out of it. First person to bingo wins. Here's a card for the husband. Here's one for the wife. Let's do it. I mean, maybe it's not always the solution, but they're her kinds of clients, right? How do we make things fun? I know that Simon Sinek always tells us to start with why, but I would argue that we have to start with wow. One of the very most impactful ingredients is to get somebody to go, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, I had no idea. Wow, who knew? I'm going to give you an example. This is Robert Lang. Now, Robert Lang is a super smart guy. He got all the degrees from all of the universities. He has like 42 patents with NASA. He's a laser physicist. I'm sure there's a more technical term. I can't remember it. He worked for decades at NASA, designing laser systems, I don't know, whatever. Super smart guy. One of the most renowned in his field. And about a decade ago, he went home and he said to his wife, I'm going to quit my job at NASA and I'm going to become an origami artist. True story. True story. I can't imagine what his wife said, but that's what he did. He left his job at NASA after a storied career, amazing accomplishments, creating all of these patents, and he became one of the world's greatest origami artists. What you are looking at is only folds, no cuts, single piece of paper. Yeah, right. Legit. He's written books and he has an entire YouTube channel teaching people how to be amazing origami artists. He can create unbelievable things out of paper, just folding it, no cuts. This is, again, just folds. I know, right? He is the only person that has mastered a working cuckoo clock folded out of paper. I know. Crazy, right? Like, I don't, this one will blow your mind. I don't even know how to do that, right? But he followed his passion and he became literally the world's most renowned origami artist. And then one day, NASA decided to send a rocket into space. And on that rocket needed to be a 350-foot paper thin lens that would be used to take images from space and send that back to Earth. And they thought, how are we going to fold this lens into a rocket ship in a way that could unfold into space? Guess who they called? Robert Lang. And Robert Lang was the guy who then went back to NASA and taught them how to fold the lenses to fit in the rockets that now send the images from space back to us, right? Isn't that crazy cool, right? True story. You can look him up. He's fantastic. It's amazing. But doesn't that make you think, wow, I didn't know that? Like, that's a crazy story. How often do we tell stories that make people go, wow, I didn't know that? Now, maybe our stories aren't as fancy as Robert Lang and origami, but we have stories that make people go, holy smokes, I didn't know that. Wow, who knew? I wonder, the next ingredient, I wonder what that means for me. I wonder how I could use that information. I wonder if that would work for me. I wonder if that's true. And then move on from that to, I want that experience. I want to feel like that. I want that same thing. And lastly, what's the way forward? How do I get there? Right? Super simple ingredients that allow us to tell a really impactful story. I ran into my lender in the grocery store the other day. I closed on my house during COVID, so 2020, the middle of 2020, in a tent in the parking lot of my title agency. And I ran into my lender and I was like, hey, how are things going? And he's like, yeah, rates aren't great, not doing a lot of refis. And like, yeah, I said, everybody's talking about rates. He goes, yeah, I wish people would talk less about rates. And I said, I bet you do. And he said, no, I wish they would talk about the other stuff. I said, what's the other stuff? And he said, well, I wish people would tell you that if you made one extra payment a year, you could knock 7 years off your mortgage. I was like, is that for real? He's like, Val, you've been in real estate 25 years. I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know if I made one extra payment a year, I could knock 7 years off my mortgage. No one ever told me that. I never did that math. He's like, yeah. I'm like, legit? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, everyone should be telling people that. Like, take your mortgage payment, divide it by 12, put the extra money on there. And he's like, I know. And I thought, yeah, those are just like simple things that we just expect people to know. Laura was saying this morning, learning real estate is like learning a new language. Not everybody speaks real estate. Sometimes we forget that. So wow, how can we start with wow? And how do we get them to wonder how that works for them? Simple stories that allow them to think beyond their fear, give them that roadmap forward, right? So really, when we start thinking about how people interact with us, we have to start asking these questions. What is the feeling, that fear typically, that is holding them back? What is the pain point that's hanging on the wall behind us today that is holding back that person from making that move. Sometimes it's just as simple as a sticky note. It's just as simple as one pain point that they don't understand. And what story could we make them feel better with? And what fun could they have by moving forward? When we start thinking about that, it doesn't really get very much more complicated than this. This is our job. Our biggest and our very best goal in this job is to move people from feeling fear to moving forward. It's as complicated as it gets. And we do that most of the time by telling simple stories, right? Really simple stories. That's all it is. So we have to start asking, what is the story that we should tell? What are some of those stories that we talked about this morning, those 10 stories, using some of these ingredients that we should be telling? Before I let you go today, the very last story I want you to think about is your own. And so there's a workbook here. We won't go through this in entire detail, but one of the most impactful stories that you all have is your professional bio. How many of you have a great professional bio online about yourself? Okay, 4 of you. Awesome. That's actually higher than the average. Most real estate agents, I find you on whatever portal, your website, Keller Williams website, Zillow, Realtor.com, and it's like, hey, this is Greg. He specializes in everything. He's been in real estate for 25 years. He'll help you buy or sell. Call him. Right? Here's the problem. Call him. Here's the problem with that. There's no story. There's nothing to tell me who you are, what you believe in, why you do what you do, why you're the fun people, why you're the analytical one, why you're the one that, is the best person to work with engineers because you are going to go through every single line of the contract, right? Whatever that thing is that makes you different, whatever that thing that makes you unique, that is what you want to include in your bio. It's got to be more than I'm a real estate agent who's been working for 20 years. I specialize in everything. Call me. It's got to be this is what I believe. This is what I do. This is what I'm known for. This is what my clients describe me as. And also, this is why you want to work with me. And so I would encourage you to take this workbook with you. Again, we're not going to go through this line by line, but I want all of you to take this on as a little bit of homework to go through this and start asking yourself the question, what makes me different? What do I believe? Where do I draw the line? What do I do that no one else does? How are people describing me? And then start putting that into the recipe of creating your bio. And then I want to challenge you to add that bio to your LinkedIn profile and your Zillow profile and your website, because far too many people in this industry, when I start Googling them and you come up, there's very little information, right? Very little information on who you are and what you believe. And honestly, whatever you come up with in this workbook could be a really great 60-second video clip that plays on your website or on your YouTube channel or shows up on your social media, so that when people like Jim and Pam watch that video, they feel like they know you. They start to trust you. You can include words in that video like, my clients describe me most commonly as X, Y, and Z. Now you're getting that boost of what other people say, right? This is one of the most important stories you will take away from today. All of those other stories are great. I hope you remember those. I hope you start to apply those. But this is the one your clients are going to see most. And so I'd encourage you to take some time, take this workbook, and fill it out. Before I let you go today, let's do some Q&A. What did you learn, first of all? What is one thing you wrote down that you are going to implement today that you learned? And I don't ask this question for a pat on the back. I ask this question because basic psychology tells me if you say it out loud, you are more likely to do it. So, what is something you are taking away from this session that you are going to implement? Yes.
We're typically pretty feature rich describing what we do.
Mm.
So Ryan and I just chatted, we do more. We always do an end of month closeout, and then a part of that, what stories do we have to tell from the data?
Love that. Love that. Yeah, features are great, but future is equally important. Yeah, love that. What else?
tries
Right.
to reiterate that point, that story together, and I know, and then I go.
Yeah. And you're not wrong. We do assume. We assume that they know, oh, that means I should use an agent. I should call you. I should talk about my home's value. We assume. The reality is you know what happens when we assume, right? And most people don't necessarily have all those building blocks to sort of get to that conclusion. Totally. Yeah.
Just piggybacking off that, going into the now what, I think that as the realtor, we go through this process from meeting the client all the way to the close regularly, and it becomes very repetitive where we sometimes forget that we know this whole process very well. We're constantly learning, but this is new to 90% of who we're working with eventually. And I think that now what, that after you're going to hang up with them or if you've met them in person, the most comforting thing you can do is let them know what to expect from you next so that they're not calling you. They know what to wait for or what you're doing so that they're not thinking about what your integrity is like or the quality of the person you are. So
Yeah.
I'm really going to strive to be what's next and always leaving and dangling the carrot as to what's the next step.
Yeah.
So nobody's ever left.
So good.
Following me to one.
Have any of you ever read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss? So Chris Voss was I don't know if he was the FBI. He was a hostage negotiator for, I want to say the FBI, an international hostage negotiator. And one of the things he talks about a lot is that one of the things he would say when he's talking to the family of someone who's been kidnapped is he always says, you can expect to hear from me at this time next. Because he says if they don't know what to expect next, they're going to make it up in their head. And so if I tell them, I will call you in 2 hours, whether I hear anything or not, you will hear from me in 2 hours, they will know they've got something to hold on to. What's next? So I love that idea of like, yes, you know what? You hang up, the next move is always tell them what to expect. Because otherwise, they're going to start spinning well, I haven't heard anything, and guess what that means? And it's terrible, and right? So, yeah, great. What else?
I think what I really love about your spin on this whole thing is we have been taught as an industry to talk about us.
Mm.
It's my volume, my numbers, my sales, my win, my trophy, my whatever. And it really needs to go back. This is about them. This is about the consumer. And the moment that we start telling stories to the consumer about what things are going to look like, then they know it is about them.
Mm-hmm.
And it immediately changes the dialogue and the relationship. So I just think like the what, the so what, and what now is everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's a Candyland chart. They are going to walk through every one of those squares. At some point in the next couple of months, every one of these squares you'll be checking off in a transaction. And it's about them and how they're going to have to get through it. So, yeah, I know it's true. We really are taught a lot to be like me, me, me. But the most compelling word that gets people to read is the word you. And I always tell brand new baby agents, switch all those I's to U's. And I bet if you went back through your last 20 emails and you circled all the I's, you'd find we use I a lot more commonly than you. So same statements. Instead of I'm going to help you and I'm great, it's you're going to have questions and you're going to need some advice and you're going to get confused and it's natural for you to get, scared. You, right? Really important words. Yes.
I like how you showed that in the videos during the
Yeah.
closing. Take pictures all day long, but
Yeah.
and not being scared to put it up like this whole thing sucked.
Totally.
But you got us through it.
That's right. That's right. Do you know, there have been studies done on believability, and especially with the younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, is that, in this age of AI and everything's a deep fake and what's really real, studies done on believability is that when we say things are easy, people do not believe us. And so when we say, hey, this transaction was great, everything was smooth, people are like, right? And so that's why when somebody has all 5-star reviews, you think something's up there. So if you have a video where you're like, your clients are at the closing table and they're like, let me tell you, like there were parts of this that absolutely sucked. And I did not think we were going to get through it, but here we are and you got us here. And we're so excited, right? People are going to be like, yeah, that's real because it's not always going to be easy. That's believable. Totally. And prep your clients beforehand. When you meet with them the first time, hey, you know what? I'm just going to prep you now. When we get to closing, I'm going to ask you for a 30-second video. So do your hair. Whatever, right? Now they know you're going to get there. Yeah. What else? Anybody else putting anything into implementing anything?
That Candyland diagram was really good.
It's brilliant.
And you know what? I mean, I'm a lender, so I am always talking about setting expectations. But I went through an experience just in the last week where I had a really difficult situation. I'm familiar with what happens in the situation, but there's so many stressful parts of the situation. I was like, bleh. And this person literally set up the Candyland timeline for me and went through and said, this is what's going to happen on this date. By this date, we're going to do this. By this date, this is going to happen. Now, this can happen, and that's okay. This is what will happen. And by the time we have this date and this date, then it'll be done. I'm like, oh, all right, well, that's good. Okay, cool, let's go. And that was it. It was that easy. And I think we all need to do a little bit more or a lot more of a Candyland diagram to set expectations. Because I think our job is to manage fear.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
We have to manage fear. And if we don't know their fear, we don't even know their dreams. We're just, sometimes we're all about, you know, like, look at how good I am. Look at my this. I've done this. I've done that.
Yeah. 100%. That is our whole job. Manage fear. And honestly, if you go online and you search real estate flow chart, there's a million examples of Candyland charts already out there that sort of lay out the whole buying and selling process. You take one of those, you make it your own, you show up at a listing consult or a buyer consult, and you say, let's walk through it. Let's look at all the things. Let's see what we're going to have to get through.
My shout out for Command and Designs, but the listing presentation and the buyer presentation and has Candyland.
Love it. Love it.
I know it's crazy. It's already been made. Check out Designs in Command. I promise you.
Perfect. All right. So, love that. So, a couple things. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get through it. A couple things before I let you go. I want you to take these notes. Maybe take some pictures of the rules. I want you to start thinking more in terms of story. Every time you sit down to write a Facebook post, instead of writing, hey, I help people buy or sell, I've got a listing, I want you to think, what, so what, now what? Maybe even write that on a sticky note, put it on your computer, think, what, so what, now what? Because so many of your competition is just doing that lazy marketing of this is what I do, right? But why does it matter? And what do I do next? Those are really important, critical pieces of that recipe. I also want you to consider maybe taking a photo of your sticky notes, right? You're also welcome to take them with you. Every one of those sticky notes is an opportunity for a Facebook post or a video or a blog post or a newsletter. Every one of those has a pain point that you can talk about. Every one of those has a solution, right? We're not just selling painkillers or vitamins. What about the candy? What is the way that you can help delight, that you can inspire, that you can make people feel? How do you bring that emotion into even some of the most painful things? You know, I said, hey, can I bring my dad to all the showings? And you laughed. That's a real thing. Yes, you can, but let me tell you why that might be a bad idea, right? Or let me tell you how that went wrong with another client. So maybe we bring your dad in once you've found the one, or you're already moved in, right? So maybe not even then, right? So my dad's a builder, so I know how this goes. But and I bought new construction, not from him, so I really know how it goes. So I really want you to start thinking, and the more that we sort of train our brains to think, adults need immediate results. They need to be walked through their fear. They need to see what their options are, and they need personal experience. Once we realize that we're just managing fear with adult brains that need to have options, we can use stories in a more powerful way. So a bit of homework for you. Recipes. Think story. Think so what, so what, now what. And also, please take one of those worksheets and work on your professional bios, because I guarantee you that's one of the most powerful stories that you will have out there. Any questions before I let you go today? Yes?
Should we put things we've been through personally, like foreclosure, divorce, in relationship to the selling the house in our bio?
You know, I think that's a comfort level that everyone's going to answer for themselves. I think that the more honest you are about the experience that you have, the more depth you show, right? Look, I just wrote a leadership book. It comes out in August. My publisher wanted me to mention that, so there you go. My book comes out in August. I know I'm working really hard at. I talk in there about that I battled depression for 5 years, and that had a huge impact on my leadership. And that was hard to write about, but I've had hundreds of people that go, I can relate. I feel that. And so if you're comfortable with it, if you feel like you are talking about it from a space of healed and not a space of bleeding, yeah, absolutely. That adds depth to your experience. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Yes.
How do you create stories when you're new to
Good question. How do you create stories when you are new to the business? Have you lived a life before now? Have you dealt with difficult people? Have you solved problems? Have you, I don't know, ever had an argument? Okay. You have experience. Just because it's not in real estate doesn't mean it doesn't matter. You still have experience solving pain points, right? I've worked with agents who were personal trainers for years, and then they got into the business, and they still have experience walking people through hard things, facing fear, doing things they didn't believe they could, uh, getting uncomfortable. You've got experience. Don't underestimate it. Yeah. Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned the name of the app or the video message where you bring
Yeah. It's bomb bomb. Like a bomb twice. Bomb bomb. Yep. You're welcome. And oh, oh, not bonbon. Yes. No. But now I want chocolate. I'm with you. It always goes back to always goes back to food. I got you. Yeah. No, bomb bomb. Yeah. All right. Well, if there are any more questions, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for putting up with my voice.